like to say that I have been involved with ULI for 6 years, working for ULI, but I've been working for David Abel for 19 years. And this is just an extension of that partnership and friendship. We're thrilled to have everyone here today, and I think that I am going to let our chair make some remarks, if she will wait a second as I introduce her. We are, by the way, tomorrow is my last day at ULI before my permanent retirement. So there is nothing to restrain me.
Gail was retired 4 or 5 times, so
no, but this one is real, so there is nothing to restrain me today. Nothing. So beware. Claire DeBreer is a native Angelino and has spent her career creating special places for the citizens and visitors of Los Angeles. Claire joined the Ratkovich Company as a summer intern in 1991. Wow. And worked her way up to finally serving as the COO of the company, Women Power. She has retired from the Ratkovich Company, luckily for ULI, because I like to take up most of her time now. But more recently, Claire and her husband, who is a chef, Christopher Barnett, have started a new company called C&C Ventures. It's a Los Angeles-based experience company to develop places that inspire creativity, curiosity, and delight. Help me welcome the chair of ULI Los Angeles, Claire DeBreer.
I've been trying to, I tried to convince her that when I accepted the role as chair of the district council for Los Angeles that I would only do it if she was going to stay the entire time. And she's like, no. Big smile on her face, but no. The Urban Land Institute, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is an organization of over 40,000 members. It's a global organization. Has the mission to provide leadership in the responsible use of land and the creating, sustaining, and thriving communities worldwide. And one of the ways we do that is by partnering with people like David and the Verde Exchange to bring thought leaders from a global, basically leverage these global thought leaders and bring them to Los Angeles and to share all of your expertise with all of our real estate team and all of our real estate community. And I think this is such a fantastic opportunity to do that. And we've been doing it for 5 years now. This is the 5th year. So I really want to today be able to thank David and Sarah Neff. Sarah, if you will stand up. Sarah is the VP of Sustainability at Pillar. And she and David are chairing our FutureBuild portion of this programming. So thank you both so much. And if any of Sarah's committee members are here, I know you're not necessarily early risers. Good, thank you. I see a good thing. So thank you all so much for coming here. I really, really personally appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to what we're going to be doing and hearing today. And now I'm going to hand it back to Gail on her second to last day.
Thank you very much. Well, it is truly my pleasure to introduce one of my favorite people. Herb Wesson Jr. has served as the president of the Los Angeles City Council since November of 2011 and has represented Council District 10 since 2005. He is the first African American to hold the position of council president in the city's history and has been re-elected 3 times to lead the city's legislative body. During his tenure as council president, he has presided over monumental policy initiatives, making Los Angeles a better place to live, work, and raise a family. Not only have local policy initiatives, which include raising the minimum wage, which might have helped keep me here, and pension reform, another thing that might have helped, and consolidating city elections to increase voter turnout have positively affected local residents. But in many cases, the city's actions have spurred state and national response and have served as a model for similar policies. While I was planning director for the city of Los Angeles, people would often ask me, who is your favorite council member? And while I was smart enough not to directly answer that question, I would always respond with, if I could only have one of them on my side, Herb Wesson would be my guy. And Herb Wesson is still my guy. So please help me welcome Herb Wesson.
Give Gail a round of applause. So I'm sitting in my seat, listening to Gail say all of these wonderful things about me. And then I'm looking at how high the stage is, and I'm like, can I hop up there? I didn't. Thank God they have stairs in the middle. Look. Good morning, everybody. I know it's early and the majority of you are not drinking wine this early, so good morning, wake up, give yourselves a round of applause. I want to acknowledge David for inviting me. David Abel, just give him a round of applause. I was told that a lot of the individuals that are coming to the conference this morning not only are from outside of California, but you're from other countries as well. So that being so, I want to tell you, I know it's going to be hard to believe, but this is winter. And so for those of you that brought real thick pajamas or whatever, just buy a LA Dodger t-shirt, extra large, and put it on. Look, I am honored that David would ask me to say a few words, and just a few words I will say. Now, it's not just the 78-degree weather that makes me passionate about the city of Los Angeles. What makes me passionate about our city is that we represent what diversity is all about. That's who we are, that is our core, that's who this city welcomes. Tonight, the President of our country will give his first State of the Union address. And I pray that he will set a unifying tone, because it's important that he recognize that he is the President of the United States of America, not the divided States of America. And his main responsibility is to unite this country and to bring together countries from throughout this planet. But that's why I'm so proud and passionate that I'm from LA. Because in LA, we don't judge people based on the color of their skin. We don't judge people based on the religion they practice. We don't care who you love or how you love. The only thing that is important to us is that you love. And in LA, when we look out into a crowd and that crowd is not diverse, we think something is wrong. That's who we are. In Los Angeles, we judge people based on their deeds and their actions. In Los Angeles, we don't care if you were born here or brought here. We might have all come on different ships, but we are all in the same boat. And what Los Angeles is about, people from different colors and different religions working together to live a better life than their parents so that their children can live a better life than them. So I welcome you to the city that I love. I welcome you to the city, the city of the birth of my children. And I also say to those of you from Los Angeles, to those of you that are not, that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to inspire not just the rest of this country, but the rest of this world. Because the closer we become, the better we all become. And for those of you that are from the United States and are going to watch the President's address tonight, let us remember that we are the we the people, and that we are larger than any one person. So again, thank you for coming to my great city that I'm proud of you. I want you to spend a whole lot of money. I want you to buy stuff, buy a lot of stuff, because I get to spend the taxes. So everybody buy, buy, buy. Welcome to Los Angeles. Have a very good time. Thank you, David. Thank you for having me this morning. Now I'm going to City Hall, where I'm going to try to save the world. Anyway, good morning, everybody.
Well, let's give another round of applause to the President. And how fitting it is that the morning plenary panel that combines all the elements of FutureBuild with Verde Exchange's energy, water, transport, finance tracks is to have Renata Simmerl come up here, the president of LA 84, the organization that came out of the 84 games here and has done so much for the city, but to bring her panelists up here to talk about the investments being made now to welcome the world to Southern California in 2028, which is a great way to set the table for all these discussions. Now, who is Renata Simmerl? You can read it, it'll take less time on the web. But I can just tell you she's a force of nature. She's been in City Hall, she's been redevelopment and Mayor's Economic Development Director, she's been in private practice in real estate, and she grew up being a military brat. No, not a military brat, a military, she was the military, sorry. Keep an eye on her, Renata Simmerl, let me get on.
David, good morning. So I can not turn my back to my panelists as I have to stand up. I got no mic. Good morning. So throughout history, the business, civic, and political interests of our city has harnessed each Olympic Games to transform Los Angeles, as well as the Olympic movement itself, and to leave a lasting legacy for future generations. The 1932 Games was the first mega sporting event in the city of Los Angeles, and it was driven by the desire of real estate business interests to put Los Angeles on the world map, and it did just that. It was a physical transformation in Los Angeles, focusing heavily on the athlete experience, with the development of the first athletes village in Baldwin Hills. And from a sustainable perspective, the planting of over 30,000 palm trees, many of which still exist today. And for many of you who recall, the 1984 Games was financially transformative, as it was the largest, it was the first privately financed game, and it yielded the largest surplus in Olympic history that still stands today. It was a sustainable Games in that we only had to build 3 new venues, swimming pool, velodrome, and a shooting range. And from a technology standpoint, and get this, I was really surprised when my researcher brought this out. From a technology standpoint, it was the first time that organizers of the Olympic Games used emails to communicate. The 1984 Olympic Games is a gift that keeps on giving through the work of my foundation, who has supported 3 million youth and their families through the funding of sport and structured play opportunities throughout the 80 counties of Southern California. So our third Olympic Games, the 2028 Olympic Games. It has been presented as a new Games for a new era that will benefit our communities and connect the Olympic and Paralympic movement to the future. The Games promises to minimize risk, maximize sustainability, and harness technology to leave a new legacy for Los Angeles and the Olympic movement. But with an extra 4 years leading up to these Games, returning to Los Angeles for a third time presents an unprecedented opportunity for, again, civic and political leaders to use the next 11 years to leave a future legacy, not just for the Olympic movement, but for our transportation, infrastructure, water, convention, and visitors bureau. So this morning, we felt what better way to engage this conversation and inform all of you than bring the experts that are on the forefront of this new legacy for Los Angeles. So we're joined this morning, and their bios are in your Verde Exchange or FutureBuild, so I won't go through the accomplishments of each of these individual men. But Bill Hanway, I just like to call Mr. Olympics with the AECOM, and we'll get into his history with the Olympic movement, not just here in Los Angeles, but Tokyo, London, et cetera, Rio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have Justin Urbach, who is the Chief of Innovation and Technology for LAWA. He's a year new, so make sure that after the panel you welcome and introduce yourself to Justin. We have Philip Washington, who is no stranger to Verde Exchange and FutureBuild, who is the CEO of LA Metro, and Dawn Liu, who I affectionately refer to as Gita, my colleague in Mayor Jim Hahn's office, who oversees the Department of Visitors, Convention and Tourism. So let's just get started in the discussion, Bill. The 2028 Games concept is about what Los Angeles has, not what we're going to build.
Do you want to just quickly go through?
No, I don't, but you can.
Okay.
So help us set the context for this. You're Mr. Olympics, not me.
Seamless, okay.
Seamless.
Right. Just quickly, we have won the Olympics in 2028 with Paris winning in 2024. It was a very stiff competition, but I think now that that's been resolved, we're going to look forward to working very closely with Paris to look at how we might even make the games better for both of us. As Bernardo pointed out, there are 4 key issues that are most important to us. That first one, minimizing risk, is a wide topic, and most importantly, we will be the first privately funded game since 1984, and that will be part of our commitment, and certainly when Herb was here, it was more of a commitment because he was sitting right there staring at me. In terms of maximizing experience and sustainability, it's a protocol, and I think LA is at the forefront of all of that, and certainly will be successful, and harnessing technology and creativity is paramount in anything that happens in Los Angeles. I think that delivering the legacy is an important point. We can't reinforce enough that 1984 left the surplus that was the basis for the LA 84 Foundation, which to this day, creates huge opportunities for youth sports in and around Los Angeles, and the great job that Renata is doing. Part of our responsibility is to ensure that the costings are accurate, so we've done a huge amount of work, but it's also been reviewed by KPMG in an independent study to show that our pricing and costs were accurate, as well as our revenue model. But there are things that will change. With 10 years, there are things that will evolve, certainly technology will evolve in terms of making a difference. But most importantly, Measure M is going to have a huge impact on public transport, and Phil can tell a lot more, but that is the public transportation map in 1984, and it was still a successful game. The blue line there is not a transport line, it's the LA River, so there's only one line of actual public transport. In 2028, it is a real city. It is fully connected and a powerful moment, and that extra 4 years allows us to deliver even more than we had planned for 2024. That then ties into our overall plan of the games, which shows that each of these sports parks is entirely accessible by public transport. No private cars will be used at all during the course of the games. In the overall plan, it's looking at the wider LA County and region. Starting at the valley to the north, we have 3 venues to the north. Moving further down, the Olympic Village is one of the most expensive components of an Olympic Games. We're using UCLA, which already has 16,000 beds and is planning 7,000 more for the games. We need to house 16,500 athletes and coaches and other members of the team. That is a circle around both Inglewood, where the new $3 billion stadium for the Rams and the Chargers are being built, but also the direct connections to LAX and the people mover, and Justin could certainly expand on that as he does his conversation. The downtown, the heart of LA, anchored very much by the convention center, is going to be expanded, and Don will certainly be able to carry on and describe all the powerful moves that are going to be made there. And then as we move further south, AEG's StubHub Center is our South Bay Sports Park in Carson, a great location for multiple sports parties set up for that. And then moving all the way south down to Long Beach, where we'll have a number of events down there. The concept of a sports park is important because it's part of our sustainability drive, where you go to an event, but you're in an area where you have food and beverage, live concerts, so when you're already there, you can then go to a secondary event. Everything will be done on the phone. But if you look at that lower one around the Coliseum, as Renata pointed out, sustainability is paramount, and there is nothing more sustainable than using one stadium for 3 straight games. So the stadium in 1932, already recognizable with the peristyle end. 1984, the 84 pianos and Rocket Man were part of the innovation and technology for 1984. In 2028, USC has already started the construction on a $270 million renovation. We are then going to put another $120 million into making it ready for the games itself. But LA is too successful in many ways, and it creates some problems, and I'll show you just one quick example of that. Just to the west of the Coliseum, we have our warm-up tracks, which are necessary for athletes to prepare to go into the games, and by requirement is that they are able to walk directly into the games. So that site we had designed perfectly, it all works great, everybody at the federations were happy, and then Herb Blessing and Mayor Garcetti convinced George Lucas to build his Lucas Museum on that site, which means it's great for LA, it causes us problems, but those are the things that we have to deal with in terms of managing the games plan.
Phil, I'm going to start with you because transportation obviously is a big component to moving, not just the world that's going to be here in 2028, but certainly the population growth in Los Angeles. A Metro spokeswoman was quoted in Curbed LA as saying, "The Olympics didn't create our transportation revolution, but the revolution is readying us for success in the Olympics." How, and certainly Measure M, the first Measure M, was passed long before we were competing for the 2028 Games. Can you talk a little bit about your transportation improvements and how you're using the next 11 years to really accelerate some projects to be ready? And I know there's a big vote that took place last week at Metro Board.
Yeah, thank you, Renata. It's great to be here with David Abel and Birdie Exchange. A couple of things. Our board last week approved what we call 28 by 2028. And this is an initiative to build 28 projects by 2028. And it includes many of the projects some projects that were in Measure R from 2008. And it also includes many projects in Measure M that was passed by a 71% majority in 2016. And so many of these projects, like the airport connector that we're working with the LAX folks on, addressing the Sepulveda Pass, finishing the Crenshaw line project where we are about 80% complete right now, finishing what we call the Purple Line that goes west to UCLA and the VA Center, which we're building in 3 sections, or 3 phases, if you will. Finishing the downtown regional connector that's not far from here, addressing the Sepulveda transit corridor, the 405, and coming all the way down to the airport, hopefully from the 405 corridor, doing an extension of the Green Line and the Torrance. So there's a number of projects in this 28 by 2028 initiative. It's the most ambitious transportation infrastructure initiative, just the 28 by 28, not even talking about Measure M. Just that initiative is the most ambitious transportation infrastructure initiative in this country right now, just that list of projects. And so we have already started on many of these projects, and our plan is to finish all of them in 10 years. which is a Herculean feat. But the idea here is to provide those mobility options for not just the Olympic effort, but the citizens and the residents of LA County, providing that mobility and accessibility to the residents that live here, and then of course it will benefit the Olympics as well.
So can you give us an order of magnitude of what the contract value are for those 28 projects?
Someone asked me that just yesterday. The contract value of that 28 by 28 is probably in the neighborhood of $50 billion or more. And it's pretty incredible because some of the challenges that we have in accelerating some of the projects on that list, some of the rail projects, we're also talking about operating those projects before the operating money is due to come in. And so I was explaining to a couple of our board members, that is a challenge by itself, because we can talk about acceleration of the building of the projects, but we still have to operate and maintain those projects. And the operating and maintaining piece of this would occur earlier than the schedule dictates. And so the operating and maintaining, we have to figure that out as well, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, for sure. Justin, in our call, you mentioned that the focus of LA has been on a pre-Olympic victory. So it really is to meet the growing demands at LAX and improve the guest experience. And it's a tough order when you consider that in 1984, when the major innovation was a double-decker to accommodate 34 million passengers, this year we're exceeding 84 million passengers. So can you talk about how the airport is focused on accommodating projects to deal with that growth in passenger travel, and how you might be accelerating some projects leading up to the 2028 games?
Sure, thank you. Like LA Metro, we have a very ambitious capital program at LAX, and it's basically geared around three main topics. One is to help make it easier for people to get to and from LAX. Number two is to make their journey through LAX easier and more pleasant. And then the third thing is to help improve operations, to improve on-time performance, and to mitigate delays. So if we look at how we're going to try to get people to and from LAX easier and more quickly, we have a very ambitious program, as mentioned, with an automated people mover that will begin construction probably this year. And the automated people mover will allow people to get to the airport and remote facilities, take the people mover into the central terminal area. And that will alleviate a lot of the traffic and congestion that you see around LAX today. For the first time, we will connect the airport with Metro, which is really a great accomplishment. We also will build a consolidated rental car facility that will connect for the people mover, and you can get into the central terminal area in just minutes from this consolidated rental facility. We'll also have an intermodal transportation facility, which will have some centralized parking, and will allow remote curb where you can do remote drop-off and pickup for passengers. Again, so you don't have to drive into that congested central terminal area. So significant investment in making it easier to get into and out of LAX. We're also investing significant amount of capital dollars to help make the experience within the terminals much more pleasant and much easier to get around. We are building a new midfield satellite concourse right now, which will bring some additional state-of-the-art gates for airplanes to come to, so you won't have to go out to those remote gates and bus into the terminal area.
You should give it applause just on that.
We're also making significant investments to improve all of our terminals and potentially to build some additional concourses to meet this really big growth that we've been experiencing over time. We're also going to use technology, and are using technology today, to really improve the passenger and the guest experience. For example, today we announced a new website, flylax.com, and that will be the forefront of a new digital strategy for the airport to get the information and the services to passengers and people who come to the airport in the digital channel that they choose. And we give them new services such as smart parking, smart wayfinding, the ability to shop and order food or retail online, and other improvements that we will be, and other services that we'll be offering in the near future. So we're also making it easier. We're testing right now biometrics.
Well, we should, hold on, I'm gonna get to the technology question. So hold on that, because I think there's a whole, revolution in terms of how technology is changing, not just today's guest experience and user experience, but certainly as we try to project out for 11 years. So let me bring Doan into the conversation. So Doan, as the head of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the growth in Los Angeles, the Cranes downtown, the growth of convention business, there's some exciting things on the horizon with finally getting to 1 million contiguous square feet at the convention center. Can you talk a little bit about the plans of how the convention and visitors department is engaging in some projects, and then a little bit of how you're thinking about 2028 and the growth of welcoming the world in 11 years?
Yeah, I guess I've got a tiny little project. Mine's only $500 million. But as you mentioned, we are aggressively negotiating with a private developer, our partners at AEG, on plans to expand and modernize the convention center to get us finally 1 million square feet contiguous. Like the mayor and LA28 has said over and over again, we're going to do this anyway, with or without the Olympics, and we've made that clear to the IOC from the very beginning. These were plans that we were going to do, whether we have the games or not. And so our desire is to, well, I mean, we're the anchor of the downtown sports park, which I think is the anchor of all the sports parks, really. The convention center, even without the expansion, is a host of 10 different sporting events, 5 Olympic and 5 Paralympic. That makes us the busiest venue of all the venues in the bid. And that doesn't even include our next door neighbors at Staples Center and Microsoft Theater. So it's going to be a busy place. Our plans are pretty low tech when you think about it. We're just trying to build a bigger and more modern building. There'll be a lot of technology innovations, I'm sure, as we plan for what a building looks like 10 years from now. But I ask for everyone's good thoughts as we continue our negotiations and bring forward a proposal to the council very shortly.
Thank you for that. So, it strikes me as interesting, and you and I were talking down in the green room, that the plans at the airport are implementing now is Alternative D when you and I served in the Hahn administration. Certainly, it's not new that we've been talking about 1 million contiguous square feet to the convention center and a convention hotel. Certainly the metro projects we've been talking about for decades. Maybe all of you share, or whoever wants to comment on this, what is it about the Olympic Games of bringing Los Angeles, a city that historically has not been easy to work on and certainly get projects done? What is it about the Olympic Games as an organizing principle? We did it in '84. We came together to really do some phenomenal things, and it seems that the same is happening here. What are your perspective on how are the games being used as an organizing principle to bring the city together to get some pretty amazing mega projects completed?
I can start on that. I think that I had the opportunity to work on London for over 10 years, similarly in Rio for over 6 years, and a couple of years advising Tokyo. And the power of having a fixed deadline that cannot move under any circumstances has both benefits and some negative connotations attached to that. One is that you don't have the luxury of managing major projects against the global economy. An example of what happened in London is the crash in 2008 coincided with the period when we were bidding all the contracts, so we ended up with great prices and great teams coming to build that work. And then, of course, the economy takes off after the games, and it all looks great that the Olympics set a moment in time that was very successful. You know, obviously, exactly the opposite occurs in Rio. So the idea of having a deadline is great, and I actually think the advantage of having 10 years actually works to our benefit, because it does allow us to sort of manage that process a little bit better. It gives us targets for, you know, Phil and his team to deliver great public transport innovations, but also gives us a little bit of breathing room in terms of when we deliver some of the major sports components. So having this time frame and inspiration of a moment in time is not the driver for all change, but certainly gives a context in which we can all rally around and deliver. So I think there's a process where it has power, but it's not the answer in and of itself.
Phil, Justin, you comment?
Yes, you know, the pride that comes with hosting a big event like the Olympics is huge. And so I think that alone brings people together. The pride of having the world come to Los Angeles is huge. And then I think the urgency of the deadline. I mean, we've got the Olympics now. It's not like we can say we don't want the Olympics. You know, we have to plan towards those Olympics now. So I think the urgency of the deadline is huge in terms of bringing people together. And it's exciting. It's very, very exciting. Now, with the Olympic bid and all of that, as far as transportation was concerned, we said, and I think it was sort of planned this way, that, listen, we already have the infrastructure. We don't necessarily need, you know, to build more infrastructure to host the Olympics. And that was the idea going into the Olympic application period and all of that. But, you know, these projects will definitely facilitate and definitely benefit the millions of people that will come here, and not even during the Olympic period, but even before that, because as I understand it, there will be athletes here training long before the Olympic Games itself.
For sure, you have the 2022 Super Bowl, we're bidding for the
Absolutely.
2026 World Cup, the NCAA Finals is coming, the NBA Finals is next weekend. So certainly there's benefit in the advancement of these transportation infrastructures for the mega sporting events that are coming here as well. Justin, Dylan, you guys using this to accelerate, are you using this as a negotiating ploy, Dylan?
Well, I think I'm not a tactfully saying.
Yes.
But it's no surprise to anyone in the room, the government takes its time, or tends to take its time. And so what Phil and Bill both said is this deadline is critical for us. And it really does motivate all of us to really get our projects done. I mean, we've been talking about convention center expansion for, you know, pre-Farmers Field Days, right? So at least 6 or 7 years. So it's exciting to finally get everyone in the same direction on this.
And Justin, was this an impetus for, there's a lot of terminal improvements that are occurring as well. You know, the one that's most notable in my mind is Delta, you know, the LAX Delta investment of over $2 billion to not just improve, but actually move the terminals. Was this an organizing principle for the airport improvements as well, the terminal improvements as well?
Well, we had these improvements planned anyway, but certainly the timing of them was, you know, really placed around the Olympic Games. You know, at the time we weren't sure if it was going to be 2024, 2028, and I agree with the colleagues here that now we have 2028, it's actually better for us, especially this time, because it gives us more time to implement some of the things that we probably wouldn't have been able to get to by 2024. So for us, it's really a rallying point to help us to get to where we want to do.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was actually hoping for 2024 though, because I wanted to keep that sense of urgency, at least with my team. I wanted to light a fire under and keep that fire under. And, you know, 4 more years gives us some time, but I wanted to kick some butt on it.
Your staff is like, whew.
4 years will go by very quickly. though.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I just also want to point out that it sounds like these guys are all using 2020 as excuse for the disruption that's going to cause in LA, and I just want to say that that's not the case. So that's a different issue entirely.
Yeah, no traffic issues. I remember 84 was quite, 15 minutes of downtown. So let's switch to technology. As I was preparing for this conference last week, I saw a prototype of a flying car, and I'm not going to ask you about the flying car. And I showed it to my 10-and-a-half-year-old, and he says, Mommy, with a grim face it, the future is now. And when you think about it, the iPhone didn't exist 11 years ago. Think about that. It's changed the way we live, work, play, interact. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. The first iPad launch we were talking about, iPad app was launched in 2008. Now there's 2.2 million mobile applications. And then back then, tech magazines touted how the mobile phone would replace paper and that you actually use it for your boarding pass. Now we're talking about, as Justin alluded to earlier, facial recognition to actually board an airplane. 10 short years ago, Chevrolet unveiled a green model car, the Chevy Volt, but it didn't hit the market until 2010, just 8 short years ago. And then Hyperloop is purporting to be completing its third phase of testing just past this December and is working aggressively on a prototype system by 2021. So think about it. The next 10 years, this phone didn't exist, and it's changed the world. So as you guys look back at you look at the projects that you're completing now, what will LAX, Metro, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, other city departments, the organizing committee, how are you thinking about incorporating that pace of change so the projects that you build today won't be outdated 10 years from now?
I'll start with that. I think we don't know what we don't know, of course. And I think it's important for government to allow the private sector to be able to introduce new technology. So we must allow the vehicle, if you will, for technology to enter into our government institutions. Now, one of the things that was very important to me when I arrived at Metro 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, was to create what I call an Office of Extraordinary Innovation. And that office is designed to work with the private sector so we will be less prescriptive in our design specifications for projects. I find that government is overly prescriptive in almost everything we do. We tell the private sector exactly how to do this, do that, what widget, what everything. Instead of really concentrating on performance specifications or performance, the end performance, and what we want the product to be. So I think we have to allow a process for the private sector to come in with their ideas, because we don't know what's going to be there even 5 years from now.
So Justin, you started talking about facial recognition and biometric screening in the green room. Share what LAX is thinking about in terms of innovation and technologies to accommodate the guest experience.
So like Metro, we're looking to be at the forefront of technologies now, working with startups and incubators to try to identify those technologies that we think may have an application for the airport and trying to work with them to adopt those technologies. We just last week did at a press event at the airport where for the first time, certainly in the United States and potentially in the globe, but passengers were boarding their plane on an international flight without a passport or a boarding pass. They simply used their face to board the plane. So their face was their boarding pass and their passport. And we're piloting that right now in Tom Bradley International Terminal. And we're working closely with CBP, TSA, and other groups to try to further advance the use of biometrics to make the passenger journey that much easier. But I'm quite convinced that there will be in the Olympic Games in 2028 a technology used that we haven't even heard of today. And so we constantly need to be at the forefront of working with the private sector and encouraging them to come up with new technologies and figuring out how we can adopt them as soon as possible.
Science fiction has become science fact. Before I get to Doan, Bill, what are some of the innovation and technology advancements that you guys are thinking about? And certainly your experience with London, Rio, Tokyo, you're bringing some of those thoughts to the forefront to sort of get an advanced thought of what they're incorporating. So what are some of the technology advancements that we're talking about in 2028 for the Games?
We're certainly learning from our colleagues in Tokyo and in Paris, and we'll work closely with them. But as my colleagues have said, you really can't know what's going to happen in 10 years' time, and possibly not even 5 years' time. So our approach is very much to look at the different components of technology, whether it's facial recognition and how it enhances the fan's experience, so you don't have to wait in line, you can walk straight through. It's looking at the technology advances in security. We know that Tokyo is looking at huge advances in security technology, but rather than waiting at a gate to get into a venue, which is already a security risk, to be able to track people's movements and to watch people as they come to the venue so they move straight through and there's no cluster of people. And then of course on the construction side, we constantly have to look at how we innovate, because we have a great opportunity in Los Angeles where we either have all existing venues in place or everything else we're building is temporary. And the idea of using new technologies, and I joked last time that there's 3D printers that can, maybe in our beach volleyball event in Santa Monica, that some of the structure can be done with a 3D printer using sand, and then it returns to the beach after the games. At the CES convention just last week, the first 3D metal printer was introduced, and how does that affect the ability to construct temporary venues? So these are all things that are going to impact us, and certainly we're looking at working closely with Paris. Anything that they develop there that we can transfer into LA very quickly is one thing that we're looking at.
For sure, there's a certain unknown factor to technology without question, but I think there's some known, advancements that we will be dealing with, not just today, but 2028. The driverless car is one example, and dare I say, Justin, flying vehicle, or I always forget that acronym. How are you accommodating the technologies today like a driverless car in your planning and advancements at each of your organizations, but certainly, Bill, for the Olympic Games? I mean, will the athletes be transported by driverless buses and cars in 2028? Well, let's hear from Phil and Justin and Doan, and then come back to you.
Yeah, I think they will. I think there's driverless buses on the horizon. I think there's autonomous buses on the horizon. I think we'll see these things in the next 5 years, 5 to 7 years. I really do. I mean, this is incredible technology. I mean, right now, many of our projects around LA Metro include some type of tunnel boring. We have sat down with Mr. Elon Musk and talked to him about his quest to really get into boring of tunnels 5 times faster than current technology. Now, and he's researching that. So, I mean, if that comes to fruition, where we can bore a tunnel to do a subway 5 times faster than current technology, the projects that we have out there that require a tunnel, I mean, it's going to be incredible to be able to do that. So and I think it's coming sooner than we think, just to be able to do that technology. So the things that are on the horizon now are very, very exciting, and I think we'll see a lot of these things right here in Los Angeles before the Olympics.
Yes, I agree. From LAX's standpoint, we're certainly one of the most popular origin destinations for all of the transportation in the city, and we already have identified use cases in and around the airport for autonomous vehicles, and have a goal to pilot them within the next couple of years. So certainly by the Olympics, I think that they will be in full force. Also, the VTOLs, the vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, which you talked about, there are companies that are pursuing this technology and are planning to have those vehicles in service by the time the Olympics come. And again, certainly from an origin and destination perspective, we certainly will work with those companies to facilitate them, if they are around, to land and take off at LAX to facilitate better transportation to and from the airport.
Well, we're pretty low tech. We're just a big building, but there are a couple of impacts, right? So, hopefully this will reduce parking requirements throughout the downtown area, but also they'll make downtown movements a lot easier for us. One of the competitive factors that we face in the convention business is the number of hotels within what we say walking distance. But even folks that are staying at the new Intercontinental, which is only 5 blocks from the convention center, sometimes require shuttle buses. And so how that shuttle system can work, maybe we can have a direct, certainly a streetcar would be a good benefit to the downtown area. And I would imagine a lot of the streetcar technologies could be driverless.
Back to the future. You say you're low tech, but certainly sustainability is a key component to technology innovation as well. And I think you guys are nearing 1 million megawatts in terms of your solar panels. What other sustainability measures are you looking at?
Yeah, we're proud to be LEED Gold certified. We were recertified in 2015. One of the first convention centers in the world to get the designation, and one of the first to get recertified. We're under construction right now on 2.16 megawatts of solar. Will be the largest convention center solar project, at least on the West Coast, maybe the whole country. So we're actively looking at our sustainability. We're at 72% trash recycled. We've even just opened our own garden on our rooftop. So we're looking at all kinds of ways to be as sustainable as possible and to lead in that.
And you built the 2028 games. One of your key tenets is maximizing sustainability. You talked about, which I think is the coolest thing in the world, beach volleyball stadium with sand, and then it goes back to sand.
Right.
What are some of the other sustainability and technology innovations that you guys are thinking about?
Well, what we're looking at, working closely with our partners like AEG and UCLA, certainly Jones Group. They already have sustainability targets that we're trying to enhance and support. As an example, the Coliseum now operates as a zero waste, the first major stadium in the U.S. that runs on zero waste. So for us, it's how we manage and tie into the systems that are already in place with our partners, and then how we add to that in terms of our future drive.
Bill, Justin, you want to talk about sustainability?
Yes, well, I mean, sustainability, obviously very important for us. When you can move 150, 200 people on a rail system, or a 3-car consist or something like that, that is hugely sustainable. Oftentimes I look and, I'm on the train and I see everyone that's on that train. The train is packed, and I think, what if all these people were driving? It's pretty incredible, and it would be more congested. So we are taking a lot of measures and with regard to sustainability and thinking about that in every single thing that we do.
Yes, we're doing similar activities, looking for some.
It's a ditto.
Yes, certainly, and working with the airlines to look at things such as biofuels and solar, electric power. So we're trying to be at the forefront of those technologies.
And can I add one other thing too? We are going to an all-electric fleet as well on the bus side. And the goal is to be all-electric with all 2,000 of our buses by 2028, or 2030, I'm sorry. So that's the plan.
Huge. I think I was listening to NPR about the battery costs coming down. It's advancing a lot of electric vehicles. Now that would portend that you need to now have the charging stations.
Yes.
Is that part of the plans as well?
Lots of infrastructure. Lots of infrastructure.
Good. That can benefit the pedestrian vehicles as well. So, Bill, you touched on in one of your remarks how London benefited from sort of the economic cycles to the positive, where Rio didn't. So some could argue that we're really at the height of the market and due for a market correction without question in the next 10 years. So the question to all the panelists, how are you scenario planning for an inevitable downturn in the market as you're thinking about and managing your plans, and certainly as you're thinking about timing of bidding contracts for the Olympic Games? I'd be interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Even though we're in a boom period right now, over the course of 10 years, it's shown time and time again that there will be a course correction in the economy. What we're looking at is to understand and learn lessons from Rio, but also the positive lessons from London and others, is to try and time our bidding and contracting to, well, in some ways to take advantage of any downturn, but more importantly, to make sure that the LA economy continues to be strong by taking advantage of the huge projects that these guys are talking about, but also the construction in LA. So there's a balance between maximizing protection for the Olympic Games to make sure that it is a privately funded games, but also to ensure that that opportunity carries the LA economy while those things are in the global market.
Yeah, I think what we're thinking about is, as we're looking to accelerate projects, to really have escalation avoidance. And so the idea that you are avoiding the escalation, if you are advancing and accelerating projects 2, 3, 4 years before the schedule, I think is very, very important. So that's what we're looking to do. I think the other piece, though, when the downturn comes, I think various things happen as well. Oftentimes you get lower bids as well. And so, the old saying, never let a recession go to waste, is very, very key here. So I think either way, we'll be in good shape.
I'm a little worried about pricing. We were talking earlier, Bill said they've laid out a map or a timeline of all the projects that are anticipated in Los Angeles. Phil's going to do $50 billion in the next 10 years. What is that going to do to our contract prices and cost of building? My little $500 million project might become $600 million or $700 million.
Yeah, not including, Lucas Museum, LA Football Club, the Rams Arena, the cranes that are downtown. I think the mayor mentioned a couple of FutureBuilds ago that the crane should be the official bird of the city of Los Angeles. So certainly that's something that keep you up at night. So this is a FutureBuild, Verde Exchange, lots of business interest, in sustainability and technology, in real estate. 50 billion, $500 million, $2 billion with the just the Delta project alone, not including what's going on with LAX, and certainly what we pretend over the next 10 years with LA 2028. How do these business interests in the audience today take advantage or get in the rhythm of bidding on some of these contracts and some of the work that's coming down the pipe?
Well, I can start with that. I think a couple of things. One is with the new tax reform law that Congress passed and the President signed last month, where the corporate tax rate has gone from 35% to 21%, we are making a big push to go out to those corporations. 53 of the Fortune 500 companies in this country, 53 of them are in California. And so what we're saying to them is, you got this big influx of money coming in, you need to invest in infrastructure. And so we are looking to do a summit of the 53, at least in California, and educating them on the value of investing in infrastructure. So that's one piece. The other piece is for the small businesses and women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses. There are going to be so many opportunities, so many opportunities. We have a very, very aggressive program at Metro, and we welcome those small businesses to come in. What we have said is that we want DBEs, SBEs, small businesses to prime our projects, and the traditional primes sub to them. And so we have been very aggressive with that. We awarded our first contract with that structure where a small business primed it, and The traditional prime sub to them, almost $100 million about 3 or 4 months ago. So we're being very aggressive with how we want to structure these and provide opportunities for small businesses.
You guys may want to get Phil's card before you leave. Justin, have
Yeah, so as with Metro, inclusivity is a very, very important part of everything that we're doing and all the investments we're making. Our board is very, very strong and strongly supporting inclusivity and requires it as part of our investments. And we are not only putting aggressive targets in all the contracts that we sign as far as inclusivity for all different types of small, local, other businesses that I mentioned, but also we are having several outreach programs that we're implementing where we work to connect small and local businesses with the primes. And we're also seeing and asking many of our primes to also do their own outreach, and part of their investment needs to be dollars invested towards inclusivity and incorporating the local and small businesses into the bids.
quickly, no? No? Too far ahead of the game? Call you back in 5 years?
Pretty much, we're hoping that most of the major projects are completed by the time we bid our contracts in 2025, so.
So as we're wrapping up, because David's doing the hook to me, very quickly, what would you each like to see a legacy for Los Angeles be in 11 years?
Please don't worry.
I would like to see an addition to something similar to the LA for a foundation and have a fiscal responsibility.
Very quickly, a successful Olympics for one, but for LA County to be the transportation center of excellence in the world is what I strive for.
Yeah, I think it would be great if we could have the 28 Olympics be the most technically advanced Olympics that we've ever seen.
Don't.
Well, the mayor set a goal for us to reach 50 million visitors annually by 2020. Certainly by 2028, we hope to see that number 67 million. And more importantly, the international visitors. We're at 7.1 million visitors last year internationally. The Olympics will help us get to a 10 million number soon.
Well, certainly your each Olympic gold medals in your industries, and the future is in good hands, and certainly Los Angeles is well poised to welcome the world to LA in 2028. So please help me thank my panelists here.